to this talk, and I posed a question to them: how many corporations are there on this planet? And one said 10,000. I said, come on, you don't think it's that low, do you? And the other said 50,000, 100, a million. I kept going like this: 10 million, 50 million, billions and billions. And I said, that's great, except you're wrong. There's only one corporation on this planet. Okay, how many of you knew that before I just said that? You're cheating. She's one of my partners. Okay, one corporation. It's called the Crown Corporation. It's in the City of London, which is not London, England. It's a 1 mile square enclave that is a sovereign city-state, which is only one of 3 on the whole planet. The other 2 are Vatican City and Washington, D.C. It's the tripartite or the triumvirate of power and sovereignty on this planet. Okay? Everything descends from that one corporation, starting with what were called and what are still called joint stock companies. And the joint stock aspect of it is it's a crown charter. It belongs to the crown, which is not the same as the man or the woman who sits on the throne. Okay? And with those capital investors creating joint stock to access stock, equity, and value or property. Now, I would also suggest to say, how many landowners are on this planet? Okay? How many of you own your house? Do you know you're lying? Okay? None of you own your house. Nobody owns land on this planet. There is one landowner, and it's the same thing, the Crown Corporation. Okay? Now, that tripartite structure that I mentioned was essentially initiated in the year 1302 by a papal bull, which is a proclamation or a decree by the papacy. It's called Unum Sanctum. And for the next 200 or so years, more papal bulls were issued. And the essential element of those papal bulls was to claim that all land and all flesh and all souls belong to it. Okay? And because we only have 15 minutes more, thereabouts, I can't go into the detail. But I can tell you I have 25 years under my belt, and my friend over there has decades herself, and many of us, aggregating hundreds and maybe even thousands of years of research, we could show you chapter and verse of where this is laid out. But you think that law is singular and in one place. It is all over the place. So when I said that I've studied esoteric systems operate on a principle maxim, which is hidden in plain sight. Okay, so law is the same thing. It is hidden in plain sight because all of law is fundamentally a matter of contract. Contract establishes jurisdiction. And in order to be a valid contract, you have to have several elements: full disclosure, meeting of minds, equal consideration. In 1783, this treaty was established, and I've highlighted the most important phrase. It's in the beginning. Prince George III, King George III, by the grace of God, King of Britain, France, and Ireland, defender of the faith, Dukes of Brunswick and Lüneburg, here's the important part: Arch-Treasurer and Prince-Elector of the Holy Roman Empire and of the United States of America. Small t. That's a different entity. Okay? So you have the Arch-Treasurer, which means the top treasury, the issuer of the money from the City of London of an office called the Office of the Exchequer, right next to something called the Four Inns of Court, which is where the bar associations issue from. BAR stands for British Accredited Registry. Registry, the root is Regis, which means it belongs to the crown or the king, but specifically the crown. So when you register your property or your child or your home or your car, you are putting it in the registry, which means the property belongs to the king. That includes your body, which is initially registered by the record of vital statistics that we call a birth certificate. That birth certificate creates the franchise that puts you into the United States of America in Washington, D.C., and therefore you are owned as chattel property, which means you're movable and you're controlled and controllable. We'll get to that in a minute. So, arch-treasure of the Holy Roman Empire, which was established formally in the year 962 between the Pope and Otto the Great, who was from the Carolingian or the Charlemagnian bloodline. Okay, and they made an agreement to meet at the end of time. The prince elector would be the king or the crown, and the king controls all the land. And the Pope or the Vatican or the Holy See controls all the law. The law is what binds us as monetary bonded surety, which means we're the guarantor, we're the collateral to all the monetized debt. So there are two lines in history, the line of the king and the line of the priest. I put this quote up here. It's a Supreme Court where it says U.S. or S.CT. That means it's a Supreme Court decision. It essentially means it is the highest court statement of reality. It says, the U.S. citizens of the District of Columbia residing in one of the states of the Union are classified as property and franchises of the federal government as a, quote, individual entity. Now, you might say to yourself, but I'm not a citizen of the District of Columbia, and that's where you're wrong, okay? You may say to yourself, I'm a living being standing on the ground, on the land, and therefore I'm not a property and I'm not a franchise, and I may consider myself an individual, but you don't understand the definition of the word individual. Individual is an artificial construct in the legal system in which we exist. I'm going to talk about the United States, but you have to understand the United States is a corporation through which every other nation on the planet is constructed as a corporation channeled through Washington, D.C., which is the District of Columbia. So when we talk about franchises and property and artificial corporate constructs in the United States, we're talking about it worldwide. There's only 2 or 3 nations that are not corporations or not overlaid by a corporate structure that is not organic in its nature.